Someone talked me into it. So, yeah, so someone talked me into it. I did three more festivals prior to this one, um, under the Explore name or title. And this is the first time I do a festival that is a concept that I've developed myself. Of course, but the truth is, it's a conversation with a bunch of people who are teaching or who are working in the field. And out of those conversations came the idea of a festival of really good sex. When I produced the Explore 13, A Critical Path, I sort of went through this real soul searching afterwards, sort of asking myself, well, really, what's it all about, you know? And I came to the idea that it's about sex, or it's about really good sex, and and that was kind of like a concept that I could work with in a kind of have it like an experimental lab. And so for several months, we just had workshops here under the name Really Good Sex. And people came, and we would, we would discuss different topics or try different things. And even like I remember some evenings, like we would just share with whoever came what was happening in our own sex lives, and that would become the occasion for a very interesting workshop. So I think originally it was an experimental space where we would just explore what sex is for us and the different aspects, you know, like play, like vulnerability, like jealousy, like fantasy, like masks, wearing a mask. Um, and then when the idea of doing a festival came along, well, I realized that I already had a concept that I had been working with. I mean, one of my teachers, Felix Wickett, he saw his festival as a playground where people, you know, have the opportunity to sort of try things, fall down, try again, like children playing, and sort of getting into that kind of childish playground idea. And I think that's also it's something I really want to have keep as well. Yeah, yeah. But because my background is in philosophy, I'm also interested in the question of what sex is and what happens when we have sex, if something happens. And that's why I sort of put more of an emphasis on the question of sex rather than presuming I know what it is. Rather than, and the workshops are different, if you like, ways to explore that question. Through meditation, through mindfulness, through vulnerability, through objects and toys. Yeah, and play. Yeah. Interesting point that you make about challenging yourself and going outside of your comfort zone. Because I think that's, in a way, where the juice is. I mean, because as Deej says quite often, like you can't be completely thrown out of your comfort zone because then you'll just, you'll freeze. So you need, obviously, a basis or some kind of safe space that's held. But if that's all there is, nothing's going to happen. So I guess I actually use the festival for myself to go out of my own comfort zone. Because like for me, the out of the is to curate the performance night. I've never done that. Well, every time I've tried to curate the performance night, it's been pretty traumatic for me. So I'm very excited about doing that. But I mean, a few years ago, I mean, the big thing was to do a workshop with two gay men. Like, it was held by two gay men, and like I realized that I was avoiding it, that I was frightened of it. And then when the opportunity arose, I actually took that opportunity to do that workshop. And that for me was deeply, deeply transformative. And I know people, come to my workshops also, it's a challenge for them. And of course you want to make it possible for them to experience something they haven't experienced before, but in such a way that they come out feeling invigorated and, wow, wasn't that fantastic? Instead of, oh crap, oh my God, I'll never do that again. But that's actually, I think that's a big part of where the juice is. It's like trying things you haven't tried before, and and even if you think you know a lot about sex, sex is this thing that it's so bound up with the unknown and risk and instability that it's actually quite healthy actually to continue to expose yourself to that. I also think it's quite I think there's a certain maturity in the approach towards sex that we're trying to promote. I think sex is often sold in our culture in a way that's quite manipulative and quite it dumbs us down a lot. It doesn't encourage us to be reflective and to take our own sexuality seriously. And I think one of the things I want to do with the festival is encourage people to take their sexuality seriously. Which is to say, of course, to be playful and to explore, but also to not be so, what's the word? To be a bit more, let's say, to have a bit more freedom with it, and to be less manipulated by our culture and what our culture says sexuality is. But sexuality can be a great many more things than it's often told to us to be. Sexuality may have something to do with meditation. It may have something to do with breath work. It may have something to do with the environment. It may have more to do with the environment with the world that we live in than we usually give credit for. And that's why I've invited people to present who I think really have a practice of erotic integrity and erotic reflection. And it's something I've tried to cultivate myself in my life. Yeah. And not to over talk it or overthink it either, but open to people of all orientations, all genders, people who are disabled come sometimes. I'm very, very happy they do. And that's also part of the learning, is actually meeting and being exposed to people who have different orientations, interests, genders than I do. And sometimes it's not always smooth sailing. Sometimes we have debates and conflicts. We don't always agree about everything. But I also am not against that. I think that's also very healthy. Well, for me, the highlight will be the performance night. One of the highlights will be the performance night because it's this whole question of how you show sexuality, or what you show when you perform, or why perform, why take something that is normally private and put it into a public space, and what changes when you do that. But at the same time, you don't want to make it completely public. It has to have something private and secret for it to be rich and real. So I'm very curious as to how we're going to deal with that paradox. On the one hand, of bringing our sexuality before others, like showing it to people in the context of performance, but also in a way that we still keep something that is secret and in the dark. Yeah, so that's one of the highlights, definitely. I'm interested in what the party is going to be like, because the party is also one of the culminations of the festival, where people get to, in a way, practice what they've been doing, or I mean, not practice it, but to deepen what they've learned in the workshops. And I mean, I kind of have a vision about how that party will feel, and it will be gentle, but people will be playing, but there'll be attention and focus. And I think a lot of parties in Sydney are very hedonistic, they're very noisy, they're very intense, and I kind of want to have a party where there's a bit more space and lightness, but people also permitted to be free and sexual, in the ways that they want to be. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, how do we organise the space? How do we make the space so that there are private areas where people can be a bit more private, but there's also freedom to move, and that there's a shared mind that everyone in the group has. That's quite important to me, because I think one of the reasons why people come to these festivals, or people produce these festivals, is because you can experience something there you can't experience anywhere else. It's different. You can do a workshop for a few days and that's a particular thing, but a festival, it's another thing. It's bigger, there's more going on, and there's more diversity, and you can have, in a way, stronger experiences, or different experiences than you can privately or on the context of a workshop.